The drama surrounding Caitlin Clark's treatment in the WNBA has exploded, drawing federal attention and accusations of civil rights violations. What should have been a breakthrough for the league, her unparalleled success, has instead become a nightmare of systemic mistreatment and institutional failure. Clark, the face of women's basketball, ignited a revolution for the WNBA. Her immense popularity, helping to catapult merchandise sales and league subscriptions, made her the lifeblood of the sport, elevating it to heights no one thought possible. Yet, instead of being celebrated, Caitlin has become the target of hostile physical play and contempt from within her own league. While the WNBA boasts about growing its game, its actions toward Clark tell a different story. The league's biggest star was left exposed, taking a staggering 17% of all flagrant fouls in the league, nearly double the rate of any other player. This wasn't just an anomaly, it was a deliberate campaign of harassment disguised as physical basketball. What's even more disturbing is that the league's response wasn't to protect their golden goose but to turn a blind eye to the abuse. Instead of protecting Clark, officials allowed players to target her with impunity, while celebrating the acts of aggression. One of the most shocking incidents occurred when Kennedy Carter, a player for the Chicago Sky, body-checked Clark away from the ball, sending her crashing to the floor. It was a brutal hit that had basketball fans around the world questioning the integrity of the league. The referees, however, saw fit to label it only a common foul, a decision so absurd that it was only upgraded to a flagrant foul after public outrage. Yet, despite the outcry, Carter faced no suspension and continued playing as if nothing happened. She openly expressed no remorse for the action, calling it just competition, which left fans in disbelief. Imagine if an NFL player had made a similarly dangerous hit, they would have faced weeks of suspension. But not in the WNBA. In this league, the players targeting their star player face no real consequences. The WNBA's handling of another incident, when Marina Mabrey shoved Clark to the ground after Clark had been poked in the eye, further exposed the league's failure. Mabrey's assault was a cold, calculated act that happened during a vulnerable moment, yet the referees treated it as a mere scuffle. They handed out technical fouls to everyone involved, including Clark, as though the victim and the aggressor were equally responsible. The next day, the league reluctantly upgraded the foul to a flagrant 2, but Mabrey still faced no suspension, no fine, nothing. It was the same pattern. The WNBA allowed its biggest star to be physically attacked without so much as a slap on the wrist for the aggressors. What made this even more infuriating was the broader culture within the league. Players from the Chicago Sky made no effort to hide their glee when Clark was targeted. Angel Reese, for instance, jumped off the bench celebrating after Clark was violently fouled, as though injuring the league's brightest star was an accomplishment to be proud of. This wasn't just a series of isolated incidents, it was a culture problem, one that the league had fostered. And as the hits kept coming, it became clear that this wasn't just about physicality on the court. It was about resentment, jealousy, and perhaps even a deep-seated fear of Clark's ability to transform women's basketball. But there's more. The WNBA didn't just allow these attacks to happen. They actively ignored the statistical evidence showing how Clark was being treated differently from every other player. Rebecca Lobo, a former player and current analyst, pointed out that Clark was taking an astonishing percentage of the league's flagrant fouls. But this number only accounts for what was officially called a foul. What about the countless cheap shots that were ignored by the referees? What about the times Clark was targeted, but the officials turned a blind eye? If all these incidents were accounted for, it's likely that Clark's percentage of fouls would be even higher. The fact that the WNBA did nothing to address this speaks volumes about the league's priorities, or lack thereof. For most other professional sports leagues, this kind of blatant targeting of a rookie superstar would have been met with swift action. The league would have stepped in immediately, issuing suspensions, fines, and clear statements that their stars are untouchable. Not the WNBA, though. They not only allowed this to happen but also downplayed it whenever it was called out. Their response to Clark's mistreatment was to minimize the issue, hoping it would just go away. They cared more about managing public relations than about protecting their most valuable player. As if that weren't bad enough, A'ja Wilson, a three-time league MVP, added fuel to the fire by making public comments about how Clark's success was somehow racially motivated. Wilson's comments cast a dark shadow over the entire situation, implying that Clark's rise to fame wasn't due to her hard work or talent, but rather her race. This racial undertone only added to the already toxic atmosphere surrounding Clark. And while Wilson and others made their remarks, it was LeBron James who had to step in, publicly calling out the WNBA for allowing a young star to be systematically targeted by her peers. When LeBron James is speaking out against the treatment of a WNBA player, you know the league is in trouble. The numbers don't lie. Clark faced more flagrant fouls than any other rookie in WNBA history. Yet, the league failed to take action. Officials looked the other way, coaches celebrated the physical play, and executives did nothing to stop it. This was no longer about basketball. It was about institutional failure, jealousy, and an inability to protect the league's most valuable asset. This mistreatment went beyond the physical hits. It was the psychological toll it took on Clark, who had to keep her composure and keep playing despite being targeted at every turn. Even when asked about incidents like the eye poke from Dejanai Carrington, Clark chose to remain professional, refusing to play the victim despite the overwhelming evidence of abuse. This is a woman who should have been supported and celebrated, but instead, she was left to fend for herself while the league did nothing. In any other sport, this kind of behavior would not be tolerated. Yet, in the WNBA, it was business as usual. The league's failure to address the issue has prompted calls for federal intervention. Caitlin Clark's situation has all the red flags that have historically triggered government action in sports: statistical evidence of disparate treatment, public statements about discriminatory motivations, and a total lack of action from the league. Federal investigators have already stepped in before in similar cases, such as the steroid scandal in baseball and the concussion crisis in the NFL. Now, they may have to step in again to address the WNBA's institutional failures. Caitlin Clark, the player who single-handedly saved the WNBA from irrelevance, deserved better. She deserved to be protected, celebrated, and treated with the same respect as superstars in other professional leagues. Instead, she was made to suffer, physically and emotionally, while the league allowed the abuse to continue unchecked. When federal investigators begin to review all the footage and communications, the evidence will be even more damning than what's already been revealed. This isn't just about one player or one league anymore. It's about the failure of an institution to protect its most valuable player, and the consequences of that failure are just beginning to unfold. The WNBA is about to face the fallout from their mistreatment of Caitlin Clark. And when the full truth comes out, it will shake the foundations of the sport. What do you think about Caitlin Clark's mistreatment in the WNBA? Should federal investigators get involved to ensure player safety and fairness? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more on this story as it unfolds.